This video is brought to you in collaboration with WoWhead.com. Hello everyone! Monte Gazlowe has replaced Gallywix as leader of the Baleswater Cartel Goblins. The Goblins that are allied with the Horde. The man has been around for a real long time, from the founding of Undermine back in Warcraft 3, all the way to joining us now into Xal'atath with the War Within. Now before we talk a bit more about his role in the story, let's dive a little bit deeper and talk about the history of the Goblins, their cartels, their capital, and the vision that Monte Gazlowe has for their future.
My friends call me the Master Blaster.
The early Goblins were no goblin at all. Not until the primitive race that roamed the forest lands near UNDERMINED were taken by Keeper Mimiron, who was busy experimenting with a substance called Kaja'mite. This stuff greatly enhanced their intellect and turned them into the industrious breed of goblins that we know. But that's about where the history of the evolution ends. It doesn't really explain why Mimiron was experimenting. Was he just killing some time? Was it for fun? Did he just wanted to see what would happen? Or did the Keeper have other things in mind? And once the experiments were successful, what did he do with the Goblins? That's not really recorded in the history books. Perhaps one day we could go and ask him. What we do know is that many years later, we would see the Goblins serve the mad dragon aspect Deathwing in the days of the War of the Ancients. And this is 10,000 years ago, the Burning Legion trying to come into Azeroth and Deathwing betraying all of them as he listened to the whispers of the old gods. With the Goblins forced to serve, he forged a powerful relic called the Dragon Soul, which allowed him to cause massive devastation to the Legion's army, but also to Azeroth's defenders and his fellow dragons. The corruption from within would burst to the surface, and so adamantium plates, forged by goblin smiths, were needed to keep his body together. Then the history focuses on the Sundering, the end of the War of the Ancients, where the land of Kalimdor split apart, with the Maelstrom in the middle. Now the Goblins found themselves cut off from the supply of Kaja'mite, and in just a few generations, their heightened intelligence vanished. Now I wonder if that means that the Goblins would continue to devolve if no source of Kaja'mite is provided, or if they have like a baseline evolution, and that is going to be permanent, whereas there's an extra heightened sense of intelligence that is lost if they don't have Kaja'mite. Either way, the Goblins on the Isle of Kazan would completely forget about the role that Kaja'mite had played in their old society, and this left them vulnerable to the Zandalari trolls. They were busy exploring this brand new sundered world and all its little islands. The trolls also knew about Kaja'mite. They used its vaporized form to heighten their senses, get some hallucinations going, increase their intelligence as well. It was a sacred component in their rituals and ceremonies. For centuries, they would mine the numerous Kaja'mite veins that ran close to the surface of the island themselves, occasionally employing the Goblins to work for them, in exchange for shiny but cheap trinkets that the small creatures prized. Things changed though, when the trolls discovered an unimaginable deposit of Kaja'mite buried deep underground, more than they would ever need. And rather than dig it up themselves, they enslaved the Goblins, forced them to mine under abysmal conditions. For thousands of years, the Goblins suffered under the yoke of troll oppression, too weak to resist. Only 100 years before the first opening of the Dark Portal would they rise up and liberate themselves. The Kaja'mite that they'd been forced to dig up, it would prove their salvation, as the mines were now covered in a cloud of the stuff, the Goblins constantly breathing in their dusts. It awakened their intelligence and their craftiness. In secret, they plotted to overthrow their slave masters, using what materials they could find to fashion traps, explosives, and other ingenious weaponry. The troll overseers were caught off guard when the goblin masses stormed from the mines, armed with technology beyond even what the Zandalari possessed. The revolution shattered the trolls' hold over Kazan, laying waste to the mining operation and leaving behind untold destruction. The surviving Zandalari fled, and the Goblins celebrated their new liberation by turning on each other in a mad scramble to fill that void of power. Amid the chaos, countless factions and allegiances formed. The most powerful of these groups were known as cartels, and when no clear winner emerged from the fighting, these cartels brokered an uneasy truce. Conflicts would never really end between the various Goblin factions, but for decades, they waged most of the battles in the economic arena. And that's Goblin society for ya. Whoever has the most moolah makes the rules. The cartels ultimately turned to trade to sustain themselves, and they used their profits to amass even more wealth and power. where once they were enslaved, the Goblins now ruled, setting up their capital of Undermine, which was a concept that they were thinking about adding all the way back in World of Warcraft Classic, but it never came to be. The Motherlode dungeon from Battle for Azeroth, it held the name Undermine for a bit, building up the potential hype of seeing the capital with our own eyes, but again, that didn't become a thing. Once more, with the war within, the name Undermine has been dropped, so fingers crossed that we might visit this capital city of the Goblins. Supposedly, it's located beneath and within the Isle of Khazan. This is the center of Goblin civilization. Tunnels of thick glass connect between the volcanic caverns. Passing through these tubes means walking along the ocean's floor, looking out to see the colorful fish and hungry sharks nearby. Here you'll find the Tinker's Union, which deals with technology and the construction of gizmos, weapons, and mechanical monstrosities. Picking Goblin engineering, it always promised an explosive time. There's also the headquarters for the Trade Coalition, ruled by the Trade Princes. This is the Goblins' merchant empire. It commands the trade fleets, their smuggle operations, the coming and going of goods throughout the world. It pretty much runs through this coalition. Each of the cartels in turn also have a section in the city. So say that Undermine is added, the Goblins of the Bilgewater cartel, they could finally have a place to live. They could call something a capital city. But also other cartels like the Steamweedle or the Venture Co, they would have a section in the Undermine. On the one hand, you would find the disgusting, reeking slave pens, whereas on the other side, you would find the lavish palaces. It would scream Goblin in every nook and cranny, but a lot of this is taken from the Warcraft RPG, so it's not a lot of solid canon information to go with when it comes to this Undermine, which also means that there's a lot of creative freedom. Now, when it comes to the fates of Undermine, the Motherlode shows us that despite the volcano erupting with the cataclysm, some of the area is still accessible, so I wouldn't write off the potential of visiting this capital city.
Time is money, friend, and you're all racking up quite the bill.
Back to the Goblins. In their story, for the majority, they've been neutral, for that is where most of the profit can be earned. But it also means that you would see them deal with some of the more shady people in the world. Whoever has the deeper pockets can buy their loyalty. They have a reputation of making profits no matter the price. They would sell their own mother if it meant getting ahead. Even their shamanism, their control of the elements, it is based on the idea of fun and making profits. That lack of morality, that whatever it takes attitude, something that people really love about playing as a goblin, and it's what makes them stand out a bit more above the crowd. The Bilgewater's former leader Gallywix, he had the Goblins of Khazan enslaved, nearly drowned, and even dared to attack former war chief Thrall, yet he was still chosen to be the best goblin to lead them within the Horde. Much later, we'd find out that the destruction of Khazan and the eruption of Mount Gajaro, it was not just because of the cataclysm and Deathwing showing up. Gallywix had his people dig so deep that they struck Azrites, the blood of Azeroth, far before Sargeras had stabbed the world with Legion and then erupted all over the surface. That digging might have contributed to the volcano erupting. Sylvanas regarded the trade prince with newfound awe at the depths of his avarice and selfishness. If Gallywix was right, he had cheerfully destroyed his own island and a goodly number of innocent, comparatively innocent goblins along with it, all for a piece of some kind of marvelous ore. And this marvelous ore, when touching it, it had some interesting effects. Sylvanas felt powerful, Endermin felt energized, others became more alert, stronger, sharper, more intelligent. This resource was going to
change everything.
I told you!
Kaja'mite, Azrites, could there be a connection? Is that why Mimiron was so interested in experimenting with it? Perhaps, but while the loss of Khazan might have disconnected them from that huge source of Kaja'mite that had brought them freedom, other vain locations have shown up, like in Zandalar, where the local apes also became incredibly intelligent. And that goblin intelligence has been put to work for engineering marvels, which often put them at odds or competition with the highly intelligent gnomes, whose origin is also closely connected to Keeper Mimiron, as they were still mecha gnomes. You might remember having Gazlowe join us to the fabled Mecha Gone, where they had become obsessed with reversing the curse of flesh and upgrading their bodies. Their king put them on a path of world destruction, but thankfully their prince Zal'atath would even join the alliance as an allied race, while Monte remembered how profitable it could be to work together with the alliance. The Goblins' intelligence and focus, it's been mainly on making that profits no matter what. But some are beginning to wonder if that no matter what part, if that attitude shouldn't change. If there aren't more important things in life than squeezing the last cents out of a deal in the short term, if that truly is worth it for the long term. And this is especially true for someone like Gazlowe.
Ah, new guy, huh? I'm Gazlowe, chief engineer around these parts. But enough about me. We got work to do, buddy.
Recruited to help the Horde with the founding of Xal'atath and building up Orgrimmar. We met him during Warcraft 3, where the asked Rexar to help him and his crew. A big, profitable job, well done, to which he decided to hang out in Ratchet, where you might recall questing with him during Classic.
You know what the best part of being boss of Ratchet is? Because I'd love to know. I mean, seriously, it's so boring.
Not trying to extort the maximum amount of profits. Being fair, being reasonable, while still keeping an eye on the bottom line, it landed him future big projects, like rebuilding Orgrimmar with the devastation of the Cataclysm. And when Cairn was slain by Garrosh due to Magafa's Grim Totem's betrayal, Gazlowe was there for the son of the Honorable Tauren, providing him with ships and bombs at bottom cost so that Bane could retake his city. Even traveling through time and alternate realities is no problem for Monte Gazlowe and his crew. Help the Horde set up the garrison and aid in their adventures with warlords of Draenor.
Hey, somebody call for a fixer?
You're entrusting a goblin to be your foreman?
Gazlowe here oversaw the construction of Orgrimmar.
Orgrimmar, the impenetrable fortress.
Wasn't it recently sacked?
Yeah, okay. One little sacking.
Even in the books, Gazlowe is the goblin that you want for the job, as he helped out in the Traveler series. This story is a little bit specific, and if nothing is going to change, I doubt we'll see it play out in game, even though I would love for it to become part of the main story. A need-to-know version would be that we have the Traveler on a quest of collecting shards of a sword, shards connected to the light, potentially the Naru, and throughout his journey, he ends up in the Thousand Needles, where the racetrack, due to flooding, it's turned into a boat race. Gazlowe had already sponsored the racetrack when it was still on solid ground, and now does the same when it's done on the water. The Traveler need Gazlowe's help with excavating one of the shards, and Gazlowe could use their help winning a race. Then he helps them get safe passage into Gajastan by recruiting the help of his old flamer lover, Sprinkle Noggenfogger, now married to Baron Noggenfogger of Gajastan. And of course, she helps dear old Monte. His dealings with Noggenfogger would even go further. Recently, they've done a short story in which Gazlowe inspects a worksite from Noggenfogger, and they discuss the future of the Goblins. He's always been one providing aid, but at a fair price for those in need, building a good reputation for himself. And in turn, Goblins want to work with a Monte Gazlowe, as he'll compensate them fairly, he'll hook them up with unions, health insurance, hazard pay. He doesn't extort his workers to squeeze every dime out of a project. And that shows in the quality of the work and the quality of the teams. One could easily draw parallels to the inner workings at Blizzard Entertainment over the last few years. You know, Gazlowe replacing Gallywix. Gallywix was working closely with former War Chief Sylvanas Windrunner, and so when the War Chief bailed, so too did the leader of the Goblins. He then did make the most random cameo during the Shadowlands, where he just showed up in Tazavesh, rubbing shoulders with the brokers with no explanation given. This is maybe something that could come into play, but either way, Gazlowe's mentality of better working conditions and a better long-term reputation, it is something that he envisions for all of the Goblins. Noggenfogger's worksite is clearly not up to those standards, and they discuss what life could be if they didn't put the workers' safety and happiness on the second spot. If just making a profit was not the only thing on their minds, and while Noggenfogger has a hard time believing that this will be accepted by all the Goblins, that this is going to be their future going forwards, Gazlowe makes such a good case that he is willing to give it a try. Imagine if we do go to the Undermine and we have to deal with other cartels. Could Monte and Noggenfogger carve out a new path for all Goblin kinds? And perhaps a better question, should they? Because I've also heard the feedback from Goblin players that they really like being on the more shady side of things, and that is what makes the Goblins somewhat unique. Time will tell, I suppose. For now, Monte Gazlowe is right there in the thick of it, at her side during the war within. He came down to Azj-Kahet with a group of pathfinders and a contingent of horde defenders, planning to use a tunnel that they'd found against the Nerubians. Before they got the chance, they were already ambushed and dragged all the way to the siege holds.
Shh! I'm hiding here!
I know you're alive. The question is, are you useful?
Sure enough, the leader of the Goblins helps us, with causing a whole bunch of trouble and free some of the prisoners taken when Dalaran was invaded. He then parties with Ferrin and stops a Nerubian invasion on his way to Hollowfall, also checking out what the Goblins of the Venture Company are up to right here in Azj-Kahet. They've unknowingly removed some incense that have kept the Nerubians at bay, also dipping into polluted waters. We helped them out, nothing like a bit of a spider extermination to get some friendly chats going. And that is where Jenny Boombuckle drops the line about Undermine. So where is the future story going to take us with the Goblins? Well, we could be doing the storyline about unions, healthcare, and the Goblin way of life. But we also got some dialogue from the PTR, which is a little bit spoilery, so if you absolutely want to go in without knowing anything about the future, then please, this would be the moment to turn off the video. For those sticking around, apparently there is a crystal on an island which has been calling out, similar to how there was a vision of Belladar. Rickett tells Xal'atath about it, how when they arrived it was eerie and abandoned. There was nobody at the end of the call besides this big crystal and an abandoned mine. Before they could take anything, clouds were rolling in, and seeing how our gang was already on edge, they decided to book it out of there. If they heard it loud and clear, then sure enough, there's gonna be others who've heard the call of the crystal. The Arafi are obviously interested in another crystal like Belladar, and who knows what other forces heard its call. Gazlowe is gonna provide us with zeppelins, while the grease monkeys, they're gonna see if they can get there faster. Another crystal, another island with storms. The last crystal played a big part in Xal'atath's plan of absorbing the Black Blood through the Dark Heart, while at the same time, it is also called out to the Arafi of Hollowfall, and someone like Anduin Wrynn could hear a song, a voice coming from the crystal. Is this new one going to be similar to Belladar? Where did these crystals come from? What is their purpose? There's speculation that Belladar was Xal'atath's vessel that brought her over to the planet. Could there be others like her? Or is it more related to the Naru? Perhaps the adventures of the Travel series? Could it be tied into the story of the Ashbringer? There's a small update to this information, as this week's Memory Disc questline actually gave us a bit more insight.
Then began construction of the Coreway, a direct channel to the heart of Azeroth that would allow the Titans to study the world's soul without harming it. However, as we delved deeper, we encountered certain obstacles, colossal crystals, which we came to realize were calcified chunks of the world's soul's essence. They are of great power, and I wonder how many yet remain undiscovered beneath the earth, all over the world.
Anduin was the closest with answering what Belladar is. Similar to Azerite, but not the same. Calcified chunks of the world soul's essence. A great source of power. Again, similar to Azerite, but that doesn't explain yet what role the crystals are going to play and what we're going to do with them. Is this a situation of we'll have to collect all of them to make Azeroth whole again, or are the crystals hurdles along the way? Objects of great power that can be used or misused. Why are they calling out now? What things have Xal'atath and Azeroth been planning, putting into motion? So many questions yet to be answered. But for now, I hope you're a bit more up to speed on the history of the Goblins, Undermine, and Monte Gazlowe. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. Say that you want more details on all the things that we talked about today, then check out the related WoWhead article in the description down below. As for me, you can subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you know this one, and until next time, see ya!